Or there we go. Thank you, Howard. All right, cool. So today we're going to be talking about object relationships. Okay, so it really seems like there's a lot of magic happening with the object relationships, but there's really no magic involved. It's very pure, simple concepts, and you'll see why by the end of the study group. But it's very easy to overthink this concept to where like you're placing it on the side of everything that you learned up to this point, like thinking that it's something completely new. And we're gonna see why it's not actually new. So we're gonna do, let's see, we're gonna do artist, genre, and we're going to do song.rb. So you all have seen this like multiple times by now, but we're gonna code it out and we're gonna actually have a discussion on this. So first off, what's the 3 different kind of relationships in object relationships? Belongs to is one, perfect. One has many. So there's belongs to, has many, and one to many,
birthday present,
has many through. Perfect. All right, awesome. Cool. So we're going to talk about the belongs to, the has many, and the has many through today. So starting with the belongs to, let's just create this class, and we're going to say that we're going to do it with a artist. So artist, and we're going to have a song. And then I think I'm just going to make like an environment, or maybe I'll just create like a runner.rb. Whoops, runner.rb to run all of our stuff in. It's going to work like an environment. So we're going to say, well, first of all, let's do bundle init, get our jump file. We're going to say jump pry, bundle install. There we go. And in the runner, we're just going to, like all the code that we're going to like execute is going to be in this file. This is going to be our file to run everything. So we're going to say require pry, so that pry is defined everywhere. Require relative genre. I can't spell today. Song and artist. Awesome. Pretty sure everything's spelled correctly. Perfect. Okay, so we're gonna define out all these classes and then talk about the relationships. So our song is going to belong to an artist. And it's going to belong to a genre. Now, generally, like songs can have more genres than just one genre, but that's totally fine. We're just gonna say that it has one. Awesome. Okay, so an artist is going to have many songs, and it's going to have many genres through songs. So in order to get to genres, we're going to go through songs because songs is going to belong to genres. So that's saying that artists and genres is not going to be directly connected. We have to go through songs in order to connect the two. And we'll kind of draw it out a little bit for some sort of visualization. Okay, and then for genre, it's going to has many songs, and it's also going to has many artists through songs. So essentially what we want to do is something like, okay, if we have a genre, let's just say this is, I don't know, rock or something. And then we say genre dot songs, we have a list of songs, right? But then we should be able to say artists as well in order to get all the artists associated with the songs or genres. But what we're not going to do is like connect genre to artists where they're directly connected. We're going to go through songs to do that. Okay, cool. So thinking about the attributes, we're going to say adder accessor. The song's going to have a title, or no, we'll give it a name. Always end up confusing myself and writing name anyways, so we're going to go with that. And we're going to stick with that for now. Genre is going to have a name. And then artist is going to have a name. Cool. Okay, so let's start talking about like how we connect these two, right? So first of all, I'm going to go to our runner here. And we're going to make our first song. Anybody have any songs they like? Let's have a few of them, and maybe like a few artists. We're just gonna have it as an accessor for now, Alex. Not worried about like secure code. More about just having the attribute at the moment. Okay. All right. We have quite a few of these. Okay, so
I recognize 2 out of 5 of these so far. I'm showing my age, I guess.
Okay. Just copying and pasting. Okay. I'll do 2 more. Oh, and I got to add the one from Imagine Dragons because that one's a good one. Too. Okay, cool. Okay, so we got a few songs. Is this the song name, or is that the artist, Nina? Okay. Okay, so rock would be genre. We're gonna hold up on. Okay. So we'll say that we have an artist, and correct me if I get any of these wrong, but that would be the artist's name. Nina Hagen. Okay. And then the song name would be I'm not sure. We're gonna go with that. Just correct me like in chat or something if I get the name wrong, and then I'll fix it. But okay. So the artist here would be Ironic. Just kidding. I think it's Alanis Morissette. And then song.new, we have, let's see, Ironic. It's oh, okay. Okay, there we go. And then I'll just do this. Oops. Okay, so there's Morissette. Then ironic. Okay, and then artist would be luxury. Okay, quite a few of these. Give me a second. Bridge. Okay, and then the artist would be RHCP. Okay, and then we have.
I just sent you one you can copy paste if you want.
Okay.
Slack.
That works. Okay, and then Cassia LR. This is a lot more typing than I expected it to be. Okay. Hey, look, we already have a string. Woo. Okay, there we go. Okay, so now we have some data to work with. Perfect. Okay, so going back to relationships. So a song belongs to an artist, correct? And an artist has many songs. So we're gonna start working on that relationship. So whenever we look at the song, right now we just have a name. We have, and I guess we'll give it an initialize as well. Self that name equals name. And we'll do the same for each of the others. That one, and here's this one. Go ahead and save that. Okay. Now then, what essentially does it mean for a object to belong to an object? Like, does anybody know what it means code-wise? Like, what are we going to be storing in order for a object to belong to another object? The artist object. Yes, we're going to be storing the artist object. So one thing that I see often, and we'll create this as an attr accessor to where we can set it. But one thing that I see often is why is it self.name versus @name? Good question, Nina. So self.name is me using the writer method instead of just setting the instance variable. Two separate things. If I have a writer method, I always use it. It might do the same thing as @name equals name, but the two is not the same exact thing. This is me calling a method, and the other is just setting an instance variable. All right. So, but one question that I have for you all, if I was to say, like, for example, back in runner.rb, if I was to say ironic equals this instance, it makes sense that we can set a variable to an object, right? Right. So we can set any kind of variable to an object, like an instance variable. You know, an object is kind of like thinking about, you can think about an object as like an expanded version of a hash if you wanted to. It's a data type. It can have properties, but it can also have actions, which is why we use objects. So doing something like at artist equals artist, if we wanted to add the artist in the initialize, we could do this. We could set it to an object or an instance because it's a data type, just like a hash, just like an array, just like we could do this, and we could make it an array if we wanted to. We could make it a hash if we wanted to. You know, all these are good to have. So therefore, we could also set it to an object, which is also a data type. So there's really no magic as to what we're doing for our belongs to relationship. All that we're doing is we're storing an object data type to an instance variable versus like storing a hash or anything like that, or a string. Does that make sense to everybody? That objects are data types and we can store them as properties to an object. And that's essentially what belongs to us. It's just us setting an instance variable and storing an object as it in the instance variable. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and absolutely, Howard. So we're gonna say that we're gonna set all the artists. So now I don't know how to pronounce that, but this song's artist is Nina. We'll say ironic belongs to Alanis. That body belongs to Loud Luxury. We'll say that Under the Bridge belongs to RHCP. That Segundo Soul belongs to Casilla. And that Natural belongs to Imagine Dragons. Okay, so we have the songs that belong to the artist, which is awesome. However, does the artist know about the songs? So doing something like this, where we could say, okay, what's the song's artist? Okay, everyone's saying not yet. Exactly, because in relationships, the idea is it takes two to make a relationship, right? If you only have one, it's considered stalking. That's no good. So we have to have the reverse side of the relationship. That way it makes sense and it's not creepy. So that's where our artist comes in. So what are we gonna add here? What would make sense for this artist object to have many songs?
Have an adder accessor for songs.
Right, we'll start off with an adder accessor for songs. Cool. What else? So when defining adder accessors, think about songs being nil. Like anytime we define an adder accessor and we don't give it any value, it's going to have no value. So it's going to be nil. So if we do, for example, Alanis.songs right now, it's just going to give us nil. So what do we need to do? I'm seeing at all from a few, an array, as songs equals an array. I like this one. So at songs equals an array. So by default, if a artist did not have any songs, you would think about, like, for example, let's say, okay, so we haven't set Alanis' songs yet, right? So if we do this, originally it would be no. but we would want it to be empty. We'd want it to be a collection, but just an empty collection. So where do we get default behavior in objects? In the initialize. That is the wrong initialize, but in the initialize, we want it to be ran immediately after the creation of this object.
Like filtering the water, the grid and whatnot. But
Class variables can be used from outside any methods.
better.
Hold on, let me see here.
I was just highlighting, one of the suggestions was using a class variable, so I just was sort of throwing it out there. What would be the difference? Like, why would we want an instance instead of a class variable there?
You have a choice between having as much point as one pool coming in or having it removed.
Right.
Also, just for the record, if I mute somebody, it's because I hear some background noise on you, and it's not personal. And feel free to unmute yourself if you want to come back. just that's a general statement that applies for the rest of the course.
Right. So if we had a class variable, is this limited to the one unique instance that we have for songs? Like, is this does this songs belong to just this instance of artists at this point? If we make it a class variable, it belongs to the entire class. So let's actually play around with this idea. I think what we're going to do is, let's actually do this. Okay, so first of all, if we make it a class variable, we're gonna need some way of getting that data back, right? So if we go back to artist here, and it's a class variable, we no longer, it's no longer interacting with our outer accessor, right? Because our outer accessor, if we wrote it out, would look like this, songs. And it would reset the array each time you initialize. Absolutely, Eric. So what essentially happens here is we would end up saying, okay, well, how could we get songs? Well, we could do this. We could even do this. You know, this is not going to break if we use class variables here. But as it was mentioned, this belongs to the entire class. So we might create one artist that has like 10 songs, right? And we're like, okay, we're finally done with this entire album that we inputted for this artist. I think I'm gonna do one more artist for the night, right? Well, you're about to have a really bad night because you're gonna lose everything whenever you create that new artist. So you might create like another album and you're like, okay, well, I'm just going to take a look at my work, and then you go to the previous artist that you created and you look at its songs, and then all of a sudden it has the same songs as the artist you just created. And you're like, what just happened, right? Well, it's because class level variables is shared between the class. It does not know like the difference between instance unless we specifically tell it. And class variables do not belong to an instance. So therefore, if we have songs that is an array that we want to give to an artist itself and not the entire artist class, we need to make sure that it's an instance of songs, an instance variable. Does that make sense? But let's just take a look at what happens. What we're going to do is we're going to add a binding.pry. So let's go ahead and add, we're going to go ahead and add Alanis' song and Nina's song. So we'll say Nina songs will shovel. This one to it. Do I have, no, I don't have typo. Okay, and then Alanis's songs, ironic. So we're gonna add both of these. So let's go back to song or artists and make sure everything's still set here, and it is. Yeah, exactly, Scott. You can't push to nil because it'll give you undefined method push for nil class. So you want to make sure that whenever your object is created, that any kind of value that you can think of that should have a default value would go and initialize. This is where you set up like the default makeup of what object that you'd want. So if you have like a songs collection and you're like, okay, this should be an array. It doesn't have to have anything in it, but make sure that it is an array. That way you can treat it as an array after the object is created. Cool. All right, so let's run the runner. .rb, and because I apparently don't know how to type correctly. There we go. And it helps if I put a binding.pry. Okay, give me just a second here. Okay. So we have Nina, which is our artist. And if we do Nina.songs, well, all of a sudden we have Ironic as one of Nina's songs, because once again, the class scope goes to it, like all the instances can know about the class scope. But the class doesn't, it persists through every, it does persist through every instance. However, if we tell an instance to reset something of the class scope, it can do that. Yep. And if we say Atlantis, well, Atlantis also shares the same exact array as all the other ones because it's class level.
Can I just ask a question, Enoch, to the group?
Sure.
Does anybody want to explain why don't we see, what's it called? Monk, Non-Sex Monk Rock. Why don't we see that song anymore? What happened to that? Does anybody want to take a stab at that?
Lost in the instance.
But why? Where did it go? It was lost, but like, okay, Adija, it was overwritten. Why do you say it was overwritten? Good. Yeah, Eric and Nina, that's Adija. Yep, exactly. Noah, yep, good. Okay, I just want to make sure you're following the code of the flow and seeing, when that's happening. Good, nice job, folks.
Cool. And just to kind of go line by line on that, so every time we go through artist.new, it's going to go to initialize, and it's going to be resetting. So that's exactly right. So, at this point right here, like it would have been correct because we haven't reinitialized any instances, but right when we get to here, it's going to go into initialize and reset that class variable. Cool. But doing it the right way, we'll say add songs. And then we're just going to remove this because we have an adder accessor. All right, so now if we exit and reload, yeah, okay. So now we can go to Nina's songs, and Nina has Non-Sex Monk Rock, and then Atlantis now has Ironic, and everything looks the way that it should. So we have the belongs to has many for the relationship between the song and the artist. We'll go ahead and add a genre class. So let's go back to the runner. Okay, and this one was Maynard, which genre was this? Punk. Okay, so genre new punk. Perfect. And Alanis, this was, I believe, rock. Oh, good. All right, what about this one? From Loud Luxury? What would the genre be here? All right, pop. Cool. Let's see, Under the Bridge. All right, I'm just gonna put this as a placeholder. That way we know, but we already created it, so we won't have to, and it's good that we got more than one genre. Okay, so this one's Brazilian. All right, and this one's also pop, isn't it? Actually, we have that one too. Okay, so now we have some genres. The same goes, so it's basically the same setup. Genre has many songs. Song belongs to a genre. So just to make sure that we have enough discussion time for Has Many through, I'm going to go ahead and go through this a little bit quick. So we'll say genre, same thing as artist. This belongs to relationship. So we want to be able to store an object as an instance variable for that particular instance. So now we're just going to say body.genre equals pop. Ironic.genre equals rock. Then genre equals punk. Oh, I guess I should probably add the rest of the songs. Okay, whoops, that would be Loud Luxury dot okay, so yeah, songs. Okay. Go. Okay, and then cp.songs bridge. Okay, Casilla.songs Segundo Soul. And Imagine Dragons.songs natural.
You got an extra C on line 39.
Line 39.
You got RCHCP.
Okay, thank you. Cool. Okay, so now we need genres to be added. So this song under the bridge, that genre would be rock. Okay, and we'll take that off. Okay, and segundo, so that genre equals Brazilian. And then this one was also pop. Okay, and then the same thing, genres would have many songs. Okay, so this is going to get a little, there's a lot of back and forth, and if you notice there's a lot of back and forth, then we should probably have some sort of helper, which is going to take us into like creating helpers for relationships. So we're going to go ahead and do that for, we're just going to do it for song. So instead of having adder accessors for artists and genre. We're going to have adder reader for artists and genre. That way, we can just define writer methods for these two and not have to and establish both ways. Okay, so we know that artist equals artist is the way that we generally have like an artist writer method, genre equals genre. But we also need to go both ways for the relationship. So we're going to take the artist object, we're going to pass in its songs and pass in the song that we're in. The labs have us assign song.artist and get artist songs dynamically. Some of them might be like that. There's different ways that you can do it. Cool. So now having this, we can go to our runner and actually take a lot of this off. Like, for example, adding it to all the songs and kind of clean up our code a little bit. That way we're not typing as much. Let me see here. We don't need an adder writer for these because I defined a custom writer where we're doing extra things inside of that. Now, if, for example, you had like an artist coming from here, from the initialize, for example, if we did something like this, would this run our writer method? Or would we have to use self.artist equals artist here? Having a custom writer method.
I think that would work.
This would work?
I think so.
But then you would automatically assign artist.songs. You want to automatically add self to that. You'd have to do that as its own line.
Right. So if this is the logic that we're looking for, if we was just to take this out and paste it in, right? That's still 2 lines of code, but to condense it down, this right here is not calling a method. This is just, setting an instance variable. And as Alex pointed out, it would not run this line because we did not call this method. So we would actually have to say self.artist here. Cool. All right, but we're not gonna do that. We're gonna stick to what we were doing before, but we were just kind of making things a little bit easier just for time, and that way I'm not typing in like a bunch of data and we're getting to like more of the actual important information. So cool. Okay, so the writer methods for both of these methods are going to be running that one additional line, adding the relationship both ways. That way we don't have to write 2 lines here and it cleans up our code a little bit. Awesome. All right, so, okay. Now we have the relationship set up between the song and the artist. Let's go to genre. It's gonna have many songs. And just the same as before, we could say self.songs equals an array. We could also say, because we don't have like a custom writer for for songs, we could save this as well, and that's totally fine. Cool. So the belongs to and has many relationship. Any questions so far with those two? We're about to dive into the has many through.
Don't hesitate to ask questions if you have them, because this is like This is bread and butter we're going to be using all the way through the end of the course, even though we'll have tools to make it a little easier.
Yeah.
The core behind these relationships, we're going to carry through every section remaining.
Absolutely. The relationships is like a big key inside of databases and setting up like relational databases. So if you have any questions at all, definitely reach out about that.
A Cliff Note version? I don't know. There's definitely some good resources out there we can put together for you, outside the curriculum. Mm-hmm. But I don't know if there's a Cliff Note. I think it's just practice. I don't know if it's just a matter, if you agree with me, but it's just a matter of doing it and then doing it again and then doing it again. And eventually those relationships start to make more sense, and methods you build to represent them make more sense. And then eventually you get tools to handle those relationships for you in a much easier way.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Active Record actually is a really good, that's good stuff to read, although it's a little bit ahead of where we are.
Cool. All right. So if you want to know the best way, I think, for thinking about relationships and how to set it up, get one of these. It's a whiteboard. It's a very good way of like visualizing your relationships, thinking about like what you're going to need and stuff like that. You can also, there's online whiteboards also that you can use. I haven't found any good ones. Like I'm a terrible artist and my scribbles are bad enough doing it by hand. So, when it's a setter or getter, choosing one won't allow the other. Yeah, so visual representation, very, very, okay, yeah, we can do that. So let's do this. I'm just going to get a white background here, and we're going to do a little bit of annotating just to think about like the relationships that we have, right? So let's see here. Let's do this. And we're going to say, Imagine Dragons. And this is going to represent our artist. So we're just going to say artist here. And Alanis. I'm just going to say Alanis because I don't know how to spell her last name. And then over here on the right, we're going to have our songs. And we're going to have natural and ironic, right? Now, another song for Imagine Dragons. Let's see. What's another song for Imagine Dragons? I'm drawing the blank here. Or from Alanis. Yeah, Radioactive. That's a good one. I should have knew that one. Okay, cool. Okay, so we have radioactive and natural, right? So the way that I like to think about it is I'll just start listing like artists and songs like kind of next to each other, and then I'll just start drawing lines. So I know like for artists, we're going to have more than one, right? And then in our mind, we know, like, do we want duplications of Imagine Dragons? Like, do we want to see that over and over and over again? Or would we just want one? If you think about data, when it comes to, like, later on, it'll come down to, like, databases. And, like, nobody wants to clutter up databases with, like, duplications. But you can kind of think of it as your all array right now. Like, would you want your Imagine Dragons to be created over and over and over again? Or would you want it to be unique? Right. So a lot of times when we have data like this, we want it to be unique. So we would think, okay, we want one Imagine Dragons, but Imagine Dragons is going to have multiple songs. So we know at this point, we're probably going to have like a belongs to relationship. And then going vice versa. Give me just a second here. And then this would be a song. So songs belongs to, and then it also has many, right? Okay, so on the right side, we also have our genres. So we're gonna make our genres kind of in green here, where we're gonna have rock and we're gonna have pop. Okay, so we can start connecting the dots here as well, right? Now, the thing is we can't say, okay, well, rock can skip going through songs in order to get to Imagine Dragons, right? We can't do that. There's no code that we have written that says rock belongs to Imagine Dragons. Like, there's no relationship right in front of us that's going to connect that dot. But instead, we have songs that is connected to, like rock, for example, is connected to ironic, whereas ironic is connected to artist. So therefore, genre will have many songs. Let's just say Radioactive was rock as well, right? So the rock genre has 2 songs. But in order for us to get to one of the artists of the songs, we have to go through that song that's connected to the artist. Right. So belongs has many through. I always think about what we call, and this might be a little advanced, but we would actually call this a join, where it's joining 2 different classes. So the song being kind of like this thing that joins both of these classes together would be kind of like that bridge, right? Where we have to go through that bridge in order to get to the other side, to the other object. Does that make sense? And we're about to see how that works in code here in just a second. But that's kind of like a visualization, is if something belongs to something, it's only going to have one of. And therefore, we only need one instance variable to be set to that one object, because we'll only have one object. So it doesn't have to be a collection, right? But it has many, it's going to be many objects where we have to have that collection. And then when that has many through means we're going through another object's relationship just to get to like the artist, for example. Yeah, it holds the relationship for the genre and the artist, the songs here. So, but let's see how that works. All right, cool. So give me a second. All right, so we have the songs completely done. Belongs to an artist, belongs to a genre. Well, the artist also should have many cool. So let's just think about that. Now we can't, I mean, like we could add it as a direct property, but technically that would be also incorrect, because if we're going through songs, then that means like songs is what's storing the genres for artists. In order to go through that, well, we're technically going to have to go through songs. So let's do that. We're going to create a custom reader method, and let's go through the songs. So self.songs, and then we're going to map, because we want a custom array back based on our songs. So for every song, we want the song's artist, or song genre, sorry. And we also want it to be unique, because we don't want duplications, right? So when we look at this, how do you get more than one genre to an artist? Oh, okay. Right, right. So we're going to map over all of the songs that we currently have that's stored in here, right? And then for every song that we have, we want the genre of that song. So this is us going through our songs collection and getting the genres from that song collection. And then we're going to get a unique version of that. So we'll see this. Let's go to here. We're going to add a binding.pry. And let's run our runner. Okay, so I feel like we probably need, let's see, genres. So I feel like we only have one song per artist at this point. So we probably need like more songs. Okay. Give me just a second here. Okay, you ought to know. There we go. Thank you, Alex. We're gonna add that one. That way we can have multiple. Well, actually, we're doing. Well, no artist genres. Okay. I totally lost. There she is. Okay, so let's do. So you ought to know. Song.new. You ought to know. And then the genre here would be. Okay, you ought to know. What would that one would be? Rock also. Okay, well, we can put it as pop. I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna add. Okay, here's pop. We're just gonna bring that up. Add it here. Okay. And then you ought to know that artist would be Atlantis. There we go. Cool. Okay, we'll just get back into binding, and then let's take a look at the artist's genres now. So Atlantis.genres. So this looks a little confusing, right? Because well, right now it's like let's do .length. So it gives us two. If we wanted to see, so that means we have two genres in there. If we wanted to see like what their names are, we can map each genre just to see like, okay, what's the genre name? Well, we have pop and rock. So that one works and it's unique. So if we had like two rocks, one of them's not going to be there. Cool. And then the same for genre. We're going to add artists to this. It'd be this kind of the same principle. Let's say self.songs, .map. And for every song, we want the song's artist. And we also want it to be unique. So if we exit, run it again, let's take a look at pop. So pop.artist. How many are there? There's 3. For every artist, we want the name of the artist. And we have Alanis Morissette, Loud Luxury, and Imagine Dragons. So therefore, we have 3 artists. It's all unique. And we're going through the songs. So going through the songs in order to get each of the artists. of the songs. Any questions about Ask Many Through?
And this is an example of where we have a join model in genre that makes sense to us. We know what a genre is. Other times it's more abstract and there's no real tangible or even abstract concept that we're used to on a day-to-day basis. And so we just kind of cram the names of the two models together to represent the relationship. So you'll see that as well. If you can't think of a thing that actually like represents the relationship in real life, it might not exist, and you might just have to sort of stick the two tables together. That happens too.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. All right. Well, there is a pop quiz after this, so I hope everybody's ready. I am totally kidding. There's not a pop quiz, but but hopefully this has been informative. Do you feel like you understand object relationships better than you came to the study group understanding it? On a scale from 1 to 10, what is your understanding of object relationships? All right, 7 and 8. That is definitely bigger than 1s. I like that. It does take practice, but like I said, definitely get a whiteboard. Like whiteboards are amazing to kind of like be able to visualize your relationships. You can like draw out examples, like kind of connect the dots and everything. So it'll become very useful when we're building websites, which is coming next month. We're only like a few weeks away from like actually having something in the browser. So
cool. Did you mention anything, Enoch, at the beginning about making sure that you get back to us on one-on-ones and or the pod forum?
Yeah, there was a reminder.
Okay, cool.
But yeah, if you haven't set up your one-on-ones or pod meetings, I've been like kind of blasting it in the cohort channel. Definitely get that set up. It's first come, first serve. So pod meetings, they are, if you go to the doc that we shared, there's a form to fill out. Me and Howard have our own form, so make sure like you go to the correct cohort leads form for that.
Awesome. I'm going to stop the, oh, you can't access the form?
Interesting. Yeah, go ahead and stop recording. That way